Hi everyone, I'm Ido and welcome to the Current Wisdom Podcast, a place for spiritual seekers to gain knowledge and tangible tools for creating a more conscious life. And today we're hosting Matt Carolyn. Matt is an addiction specialist and mindset wellness coach. He guides individuals and family impacted by addiction and supports them in finding clarity within the chaos. He works with men, women, and couples, supporting the liberation and embodiment of their inherent authentic truth while using earth wisdom as our greatest teacher. I am so honored and so grateful to have you, Matt. And I think that using earth wisdom as our greatest teacher is the intention for today's call.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. It's been the greatest teacher for me, and it's my favorite teacher also because it's everyone has access to it. We can all be taught.
And I will say that Matt is a dear friend of mine. And whenever we have conversations, since we both study Umbanda and are inspired by the path of Umbanda, I always imagine that people would be like a flies on the wall just to hear the conversation and how inspiring it is to be around Matt when he talks about life through the lens of Umbanda. So I just had to have him on the call, and I'm so excited for what will come through.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad to be here, dude. I love our conversations always. They always light me up as well. So I'm excited to feel that again today.
That's amazing. So, Matt, why don't we jump right in by telling us how did you start your journey with Umbanda?
So my journey with Umbanda started in my through my search for finding answers to addiction. I was heavily addicted to methamphetamine in this search. And, to people that don't understand addiction, I'll first say I didn't want to be doing methamphetamine. I couldn't stop doing methamphetamine. There's a big difference. And so I truly wanted to stop. I just didn't know how. I couldn't. The consciousness that I was living in at the time could not comprehend the life without it. Right. And so I was seeking answers, and I had sought answers through all of the rehabs and treatment centers and AA and all of these avenues that were all really helpful, and I gained so much information, but they weren't the thing that actually I needed. A miracle is what I needed. And so I started working with plant medicine. Um, a few years into my journey with plant medicine, I came across Umbanda, and I heard a community that I was sitting with at the time talking about orishas and this and that. And I was like, what the hell are you guys talking about? What is this? And that was the beginning of my path to studying Umbanda. And I'll also say too, that, well, where did Umbanda come from? Right? I think is important to talk about as well is what is actually Umbanda, right? Umbanda is the esoteric study of the forces of nature, right? It started in Africa as a religion called Ifa, which is the oldest religion in the world, dating 8,000 plus years back in history, older than Hinduism. And from there, right, the slave trade brought it over to the Americas, where it started to turn into candomblé. And from there, it scattered from to different voodoo and Santeria in different areas of parts of the world as well. But how it started in Africa, I think, is really important to how I use it in the lens that I look through now. Is it started as observation. People just started observing what would happen when people started to go into the river, right? For example, a woman was struggling to get pregnant, and then she goes into this river and gets pregnant. They just take mental note of that. And this happens over and over again, right? This guy climbs to the mountain and comes back with a great business idea, right? He goes into the forest and finds out something, a new plant, a new food, a new way of harvesting something, right? And so they started to just observe what was happening to them as humans as they were interacting with nature. And then what they called is they animated these forces of nature, which mean they gave them human names, human forms, so that they could relate to them a little bit better. And so that is the beginning of this tradition, which has spanned, like I said, over 8,000 years of this wisdom. And what really sparked my interest, so back to where I actually will go back to where I started learning about Umbanda in my search for addiction. I went to my first Umbanda ceremony, and it immediately made sense to me. The visions that I was having were different than the visions I was having in different ayahuasca ceremonies. They were more direct. They were more speaking directly to me and showing me about myself through the lens of nature. And so that went on and on and on for about another year and a half of me still active addiction, trying, right, 2 weeks clean, on for 2 weeks, off for a week. I was really in this state of like really fighting for my life, right? And I didn't know it at the time, but that's exactly what was happening. I was fighting for my life. And in these ceremonies, I was watching and realizing that I had support. I wasn't just fighting by myself. There was these qualities of the earth that were supporting me in this fight that was so beautiful. And so where I received my miracle if was during a ceremony towards for two specific orishas they call Ogum and Iansa. Iansa is the wind of the winds of transformation, which we hear so much about in all different lineages. Transformation is just really associated with the wind in so many different lineages, not just Umbanda, right? And then Ogum, who is um, the iron, the metals of earth, right, which represent technology and discipline and things like that, right? And so I'm in this ceremony with that is a work specifically with these two energies, and I just dropped to my knees and prayed the entire time. Help me. I can't stop on my own. I need help. I beg you, please. I need support. I can't do this. I want this so badly. And for literally 8 hours, I that was my prayer. I couldn't stop praying that. And so a few months go by, right? And all of the sudden, I'm locked out of my phone for no apparent reason. And I take it to Apple. I try to do everything to get it back on. And Apple's like, I don't know. We should be able to, and we don't know you. Right. And so they tell me I have to wait a couple of months. In this process of these couple of months, I lose my wallet. Right. My girlfriend, my now wife at the time, finds my drugs. Right. And so all of these things are being taken away from me without my, right. I'm not doing this. Something outside of me is doing this for me, but I don't see it at the time, right? I'm in a state of panic, right? I'm out of drugs, I don't have money, and I can't contact any of my dealers. And so I'm in this state of chaos and panic trying to find drugs. I don't realize that this is what's happening quite yet. It didn't hit me until something that I used to be really ashamed of saying, but I can say it now because it's such a beautiful part of this story was I was looking underneath the seats of my car and the carpet of my car for crumbs of a drug, something that resembled methamphetamine so that I could use it. And what I found underneath the first seat was a necklace that had my daughter's picture on it. It was the first thing I found. Sadly enough, that wasn't enough to stop me. I looked under the other seat as well. And what was under there was a stuffed animal that she had given me that before I went on a road trip that I had gone on about 2 years before, right? And that's when it hit me. This has happened. The prayer is being answered. During that ceremony, one of the visions that I had was of a tornado, a windstorm that was blowing this tree to smithereens, except for the trunk. And all I kept hearing was, hold on to what's true, hold on to what's true. And I didn't understand at the time, but that's all I needed to do in that moment. And so what I did was right, Ogum took the technology away took my ability to access contacts and things like that. And then Ian Sa, she showed me what do I need to do to weather this storm that I was in right now. And so I walked out to my backyard. I sat down, and for 3 days, I did not move. I sat down, I cried, I let every frustration, yelling, crying, tearing, feeling bad for myself, everything, but I just held on to what was true. And what was true was I didn't want to do drugs anymore. That was it. That was the only thing I knew to be true in my whole life. And in that process, I really got to observe the storm of addiction that was circling around me, trying to get me to fly away with it, right? To get me to be afraid of who I could be without it, right? I was able to be a witness to it by holding on to this truth in a way that I had never been able to witness before. Um, and so I'm so thankful for that experience. But I received that miracle, and after that happened, I dedicated my life to the study of this work because I worked. Not only did it work, it's real, it's happening in real time on our behalf at all times. And the most beautiful part about this is right, we call it Umbanda, and it is a religion, very much so. But these energies of the forces of nature have been working for all of us, all of humanity, long before I knew what an Orisha was, long before I even heard the word Umbanda, long before I even knew what ayahuasca was. And they've shown me how that has been working. And to somebody who may be kind of doubting this process, or thinking that only their religion is helping them, I would be what I would say to that would be, there is nothing new that has been created other than what God created. So everything that makes us up has been out in the world before it became us, before it became my skin, my hair, my eyes, my organs, my heart, my teeth. They were something else before. They were aspects of nature. They might have been a tree. There might have been water from the ocean, water from a river, rocks from a mountain that now make up me, who I am today, right now. They're housing this soul, my spirit. And so there is no separation. We are nature, and nature is us. Nature has been here helping us our entire lives, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. It's happening. There's no way around it to avoid it, right? And so that is how I came into Umbanda, and why I'm so passionate about it, because it not just has helped me, but so many of my clients and the people I work with and friends and people that I sit in prayer with around their lives change. Their lives change. They get better. Their prayers are get answered, and they're how do you stop that? How can you not want to continue learning more about that? I wish I started this process when I was a child, and so I found it so late in life that I've dedicated my life to it. I want to learn and study as much of this as I possibly can before the next chapter.
I think, first of all, this story is really amazing, and thank you for sharing with such an openness and vulnerability. And I believe that the reason that Umbanda really inspires both of us so much is just like you described, that the esoteric connection to Mother Nature. And for those who don't understand what esoteric means, it pretty much means, how is that related to me? So I can know that Moses was standing in front of the burning bush, or Jesus walked on water. But as a spiritual seeker, I always want to ask myself, how does this story impact my own journey and my own life? I'm not walking on water, and at the moment, I'm not standing in front of a burning bush. However, I am constantly engaging with nature. We're going to talk a lot about Yansa later on, but Yansa, goddess of the wind, you can just observe a tornado and understand that you can either be part of it and swirling around and being in a complete chaos in your life, or you can be centered, grounded in the center, the eye of the storm. So each aspect of nature have always these two poles, and each one of the orishas that we're going to talk about, they have their um, aspect elements, personification parts that are really connected to the higher self, and the ones that are definitely part in the more destructive part of who we are as humans, and aspects of the lower self, like Ian Sa with being in the storm or part of the storm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have to ask, did you grow up in a religious house?
Yeah, I grew up very Catholic. I was an altar boy, went to Catholic school, and and I will also say that like Jesus and Mother Mary it's still such a huge part of my life. Like I still believe, I'm still learn from them. I still pray for them, to them. It's not so much this way is the only way, which is something that I love so much about Umbanda, is because if somebody else comes to somebody who practices Umbanda and says, "Oh, well, my God believes this," what their response would be was like, "Oh, tell me more. Tell me more." Right? It wouldn't be, "Oh, well, that's wrong and you need to do this." No, which is what I love about Umbanda is they synchronize any religion and any teaching that is similar to what the forces, they synchronize them, they blend them together, they invite them in, they incorporate them into their song, into their prayers. It is not about one way or not. It's like about similarities and combining and coming back to unity and community as children of God and children of this earth, which is why it calls to me so much, because that's what I believe in my heart to be true, is that no one's wrong. We're all right. Let's find the similarities and come back together. I truly do believe that.
That's beautiful. Now let's take you a little bit down this aisle, down the path. So you started studying, and then can you explain a little bit about the concept of head orisha and who is your head orisha?
Yeah, so that our head Orisha is typically the one that is here to help us learn the lessons that we need to learn the most. They're here to guide us through this life, and they're really present with us. And so my head Orisha, or my main guide through this life, is Shango and Iansa. Shango is the mountain, thunder, lightning, fire. Yansa, who is in what we call the divine line of justice, which is represents balance and harmony. Right? We use the word justice because what is balance and harmony if not just? Right? And why we he is the mountain as well as fire and things like this is because if we look at, again, we just have to observe, right? If I look at a mountain range, right, let's take the Himalayas for example. On one side of the Himalayas is snow and freezing cold and rain and all of this, and on the other side, desert or lush jungle warmth, right? It's opposite. And so the mountain is the tipping point of the scale, right? Both of these are needed. The cold water, the cold weather system on one side of the mountain is directly impacting the jungle, and the jungle is directly impacting the other side of this mountain in a way to keep everything in this planet in harmony and in balance. So justice is really harmony and balance to keep the status quo, to keep life alive, if you will, right? Is so what is more just of an act to fight for keeping life living, to keep life alive, right? And so that is what he represents, or this entity, this being, this energy represents. And Iansa being the lightning and wind and storm. And it's interesting because what what directs a fire and where to go? The winds, right? And so in this way, we're learning more about how in this relationship, the feminine points the direction, it leads the way for transformation to happen, for rebirth to happen, for balance and harmony to take place, right? It's being guided by the feminine, which makes a lot of sense when we are living in a feminine planet in Mother Earth. Um, and there's a lot of more teachings there, but I'll kind of hold that for now. And I know you're one of your heads. Is there more multiples, or do you just
So
have
I
one?
also like you, I have two. My main head orisha is Oshosi, the archetype of the hunter that teaches us focus and determination and connection to dedicating our life to knowledge of self, which I can really resonate with that. And my mother, the other head orisha that governs me, is Oshun, the goddess of the sweet waters, the rivers. It's very interesting because they are a power couple. Iansa and Shango, your head orishas are also a power couple. It's important for those who are listening to know that we have both discovered our head orishas via something that is called divination. Would you like to say a word about that, about this process?
Yeah, so the divination is where a priest or a medium who is definitely a priest has the capacity to roll shells out onto there's like a cylinder uh, kind of like container that like is either woven or a cloth bottom. Typically, it's like of earth, and then they roll very much like Yahtzee or dice, but it's shells that they roll, and they can read these shells that will give them information to who your head Orisha is. And I'll also say too, and I'm sure you can probably relate to this too, like most people have an idea already who their head Orisha is. And most of the time they're right. And but to have it confirmed, a divination reading is required for the confirmation of that. And just because Oshosi and Oshum are your head Orishas does not mean that you can't work with every single other one of them and learn from all of the other ones. It just means that, like for my life, I'll give the example, right? Drug addiction was a big part of my life. I There was a point in my life where I had more years alive on drugs than not on drugs. And that includes 0 to 14, right? I have 14, 15 years of given free time not on drugs. And there was a point in my life where I had lived more years on drugs than off of drugs, completely out of balance with my soul's purpose, right? Completely doing the opposite of what I'm doing now, right? And so this is why Shango is my head, to help me understand this balance, to balance my life out. And so all of the negative, the lying, manipulating, cheating, stealing, all of the things that I was doing in my addiction, now I'm on the other side of it and I get to be of service. I get to be in a truth and honesty and help and support and be a positive impact in the world instead of a negative impact. So my scales are tipping, right? And the more they tip, the more I get to understand myself in this process. And not only myself, but these entities that are supporting me, right? And obviously transformation, I think we can all relate to, and we all have things we would like to change and transform. And I think what you were touching on of Iansa is, I think, such a beautiful aspect of Iansa is she's very compassionate. Iansa actually means mother of nine. It translates to mother of nine. So she's very motherly. And how stern can our mothers be when they love us so much? Right? Like, and so if we watch what happens in nature, for example, so for me in addiction, I had a hard time of letting addiction go, right? And so we can watch a tree during the season of fall, right? This tree during spring and summer grows, branches out, leaves, flowers, fruits, looks beautiful. And then fall starts to come and it will naturally let go of some of the leaves on its own, most of them even. But for some reason, certain trees, they really like certain areas of themselves. They're like, no, I worked really hard on that. I'm not ready to let that go. But they have to, because it's the time for them to let go. And so here comes Iansa to support them in letting go. The winds come to help them let go of the things that they're holding on tight to that they need to let go of. So as I'm holding on tight to addiction and really scared about what's going to happen if I let it go, insert this storm, right? This chaotic, intense, right? Like search for a way to find, right? There's very much a storm, right? But that was her showing me, look, this is no longer for you. You let this go. And then we watch this happen in nature, right? The trees let it go. And then what happens the next spring? They grow back even bigger, more fruit, more flowers, more beauty, bigger, like it's more life, right? And again, right, we are part of this system.
Yes.
This is happening inside of us. It is not, we can witness it outside of ourselves, but to witness it outside of ourselves is to understand it within ourselves so that we can use these tools, these teachers, to show us how to navigate life and to really grow and become who we're meant to be in this life.
I will say that, like you said earlier, while we have our own head Orisha, we are part of each and every part of Mother Nature. I need the wisdom of Mother Yemanja, goddess of the ocean, to help me connect to my emotions. I need the help of Eshu to help me choose which way to go, what doors to close, so the right ones will be open for me. I'm really calling in Yansa, even though she's not my head Orisha, to help me transform with ease and balance. And if I need to say something about Shango that I'm still learning, and you are the closest that I feel that I get to Shango, I have a long way to go in my studies of this incredible deity, but Shango represents justice. And it's like what you're describing with fighting addiction. It's like he's asking you, are you doing justice with yourself? Are you in justice with yourself? And it's like, it's going to be so, it will echo in your life so harshly that, like you said, you're going to have to, at some point, balance the scale so you can answer this question from a sincere and honest place. Yes, I wasn't doing justice with myself. And also, Shango is holding
Yeah.
the double-sided X.
Yeah.
And what I've learned from our teacher Kai is that double-sided X esoterically means that when you are judging others on your own um, perception of justice, you are pretty much hurting yourself and you are judging yourself. So it's that double-sided. If you are aiming the justice only outside, only towards the others, you will receive it very, very clear that the that it's actually meant for you, that whatever it is that you're feeling and pointing outwards is actually meant for you to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And it also works in this way of like helping us to get present and appreciate what we have right now, also with this double-sided axe, because back to the mountain, and on one side is the ice and the cold and the snow. If people are living in that conditions, what are they wanting? Heat, right? Relief. They're wanting warmth. And the people that are sweating on the other side, living in the heat and the humidity, what are they wanting? They're wanting to be cooled and be down, right? And so they're both in the places that they're at, but they're wanting what the other person has, right? And so in this same way, it helps to show us to appreciate what we have right now, where we're at in our lives, because that is what helps create balance and harmony. If we're always wanting something outside of ourselves, or we're always reaching for something that we don't have, we're actually out of balance
Mhm.
because we're not appreciating what we have right now. And so it's we're like when you reach from a ladder, you reach too far, what happens? You fall, right? Same way in life, right? It's to he's showing us how to balance what we have with the direction we're going and what we're wanting. So if we have things that are weighing us down or keeping us stuck, we have to let those go also so that we can move forward, right? So it's both sides of this. I really, the double-sided axe has a lot of wisdom in there. And I love that you brought this up too, because I think it's important. Something that is very off-putting to some people um, is that most of the Orishas are depicted carrying weapons. There's an axe, a sword, a whip, right? And a lot of them are carrying these weapons, and it's like they're used to seeing, right, angels or crucifixes
Mhm.
or stars and things like that. And so all of a sudden, somebody is showing them something with a weapon, and they're like, "Oh, that's evil. I don't want that." Right?
Violent, yeah.
Or violent, right? And so I would like to speak to that because it's they why do they do this? Why are they carrying a double-sided axe and a sword and these things, an arrow, right?
Mhm.
It's because they're fighting for us on our behalf at all times. Imagine like having that support on your side, because that's what's happening. That's the truth. We have the support of the planet, of humanity to evolve, to grow. They're fighting for us to recognize each other. They're fighting for us to see similarities. They're fighting for us to let down our defenses, right? To connect back to her. Like that's what they're fighting for. So what happens when we fight just a little bit on our own behalf? Magic happens, miraculous things happen.
Yeah,
And
and it's also like understanding that we have this qualities within us. We are fighters, we are warriors. If we're taking even the statue or the representation of Archangel Michael standing on the monster, on the dragon with the knife, defeating him, because we need sometimes to fight our ego, fight our own mind, and fight for our sovereignty and fight for our well-being. But we're thriving to be peaceful warriors at the end of the day.
absolutely, right? The fight is internal. It is an internal battle against our own judgments, our smallness, like Kai says so beautifully, right? Is like it's our fight to be able to stand in our own weakness, right? Because it is one of the hardest things to do. And we were talking about this the other night, to turn the light on yourself, right? And I understand, like, to turn the light on and look inside and see how you are completely responsible for your entire life. That there is actually no one else to blame. That there is actually no one else has the responsibility over your thoughts, your feelings, that you are in complete control of that. And I call that like this Archangel Michael, right? Is like it's wielding the sword of truth, right? I pick up this sword, and in the beginning, it cuts me, it hurts. It's painful because I have to look at my procrastinations. I have to look at my lies, my manipulations, my people pleasing, my codependency, all of these things. I have to look at them, right? And then, but because I've turned the light on to them, I'm allowed to now work on them. I see them, they're there. I can acknowledge that, okay, this is how I'm living my life right now. And now, is that how I want to be living my life? No. Okay, so now I get to choose differently because I'm not stuck in the same behavior patterns as I was before when I was in the dark. I wasn't looking. It was someone else's fault. Oh, I did this because you said you did this to me, so I did that to you, in a very reciprocity type way of living rather than complete ownership and of your entire reality.
Really, really helps when we work with these deities, with these orishas, is constantly be in this notion of curiosity and humility and asking for help and asking what quality I need from which orisha. Many times in my relationship with Sarah, she tells me, you're very much ogum or oshosi, you're very focused, you're very determined. I need you sometimes, or I invite you to be a little bit more oshum, flow with life, flow like the river, or connect to your emotion. Go sit in front of Mother Yemanja and really cry, release. So it's constantly asking myself what it is that I need right now, like constantly examining and doing control check on myself to see where I'm at and who can help me at this point in time.
Yeah, that's what I love about you so much because that the fact that you're doing that, that we get to do that for ourselves is what creates safety. That creates safety on the planet. It creates safety in our environments, right? By scanning yourself and seeing and being able to look and witness yourself in all aspects of yourself, that creates safety. And that is such a thing that is so needed right now in our times, is the ability for people to feel safe, to feel seen, right? To be heard and even understood in a way, right? Is and what I'll add to that too is because what you're speaking to about how focused you are, all of these energies that we're speaking about also have shadows, right? And a shadow of Oshosi is to overhunt, to over pursue, right? To forget what is already at home in the pursuit of the overly focus, right? And so amazing that you have this teacher who's showing you this in real time, right? And we have our women, these conscious women that we both are so blessed and lucky to have, that get to mirror and show us these parts of ourselves, right? To right, and again, that's just creating more safety with inside of the relationship, which I love so much. I mean, imagine, right? And my wife and I have been through this as well, right? Like we went from I went from being a completely unsafe partner. Very addiction is very much, it's very closely, I mean, it's towing the line with narcissism because it is so self-absorbed, right? And so, which is creating a lot of unsafety, right, inside of the relationship, to now being able to look and like we were saying, right, it's creating safety, it's bringing safety back into relationships. And so why I say this is because everybody has this capacity to do this, no matter where you're at right now. If you think that it is the society's fault, the government's fault, your parents' fault, your partner's fault, your job boss's fault, your job's fault, it's not too late. It is not too late. There is an opportunity to look inside, and I promise it's not as scary as we think it is. It's not as scary as our ego wants us to think it is. And it I'll pass back to you in on that actually.
It's so interesting when you talk about the sometimes the lack of balance when we're working with specific orishas. It reminded me, it took me actually not to Oshosi, but to Ogum. I was planning a ceremony around Ogum, and Ogum's energy is very much like you described. There's one way. He walks the straight path. He's the warrior. There is no compromising. It's very strict. And I felt that for a couple of weeks. I felt the rigidity of being so strict with myself and only looking straight and not looking sideways and not finding the flow and the ease. Then Ogum will show you what it means to be harsh with yourself. It's like taking the sword, cutting off your head very abruptly.
Very abruptly, and I love that, right? It's like, it's okay, what do you want to do in your life? Okay, what is getting in the way of you doing that? Okay, so now Ogum is like, now everything that's getting in the way is no longer an option. It is off the table. So now it's just this way. And then you go and you do that way and you start to see, wow, it's working. I'm actually making progress, right? I'm paying off debts and blah, 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 right? I'm getting my life back in order, in balance, in harmony. And as we walk this path, hopefully, right, if we walk this disciplined path long enough, we run into that moment that you're running into where, wow, I've actually spent so much time focusing on this, but look at where I'm at. I made it to this point where now I get to relax and enjoy some of this. So it's not always Ogum, right? It's sometimes it's Ogum and then it's Oshun. And I love that those two are the two that you said, because I think they work really well together, right? Because Oshun representing self-love, what higher form of self-love is there than discipline or consistently showing up in your own life to achieve what you're wanting to achieve? There is no higher form of self-love. So I believe they work really well together in that way, right? Can we be disciplined enough to show up consistently and then let Oshun kind of navigate and course correct for us? Okay, wow, you've been spending a lot of time at work, but not on the gym, not on your physical health. Okay, so now I navigate, right? And now I'm disciplined at work, and now I'm disciplined in taking care of my body, right? And it's all self-love, right? I'm learning how to love myself, how to take care of myself, how to live optimally, right? Okay, now I'm working on my business and I'm working on my self-care, my physical body, my health, but I'm still very emotional. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. Okay, Mama Yemaja, come in, teach me how to balance my emotions, right? But let me have discipline in it, right? I'm disciplining all of these things. And discipline, I believe, I love the word discipline now, but I hated that word for a really long time. And so what helped me was changing it to consistency, right? Consistency is the word that I want to use because I still have this really rebellious part of me that's like, discipline, tell me what to do, and watch me walk away, dude.
The
Fuck
ego doesn't like it at all.
it doesn't
Absolutely.
like it at all. So like, right. But I'm knowing this about myself. And so we get to navigate through these so that we can continue to move with the things that want to keep us stuck and still.
And at the end of the day, I'll tell all the people that are listening when Matt is saying, connect to Yemanjao, connect to Ashum, the first step, I believe, needs to be go to visit nature. Go to sit in front of the ocean without your phone, just by yourself, with your feet on the sand, and see how it makes you feel. See if it doesn't bring some emotions within you, and understand why Yemanja is very feminine, why the ocean is very feminine, why the ocean carries our emotions. That is the first step. The first step, if you want to study Umbanda, go to visit Mother Nature, go to the river, go to the forest, climb the mountain, go to the ocean, feel this direct connection between you and Mother Nature.
Yeah. It's so I love that. Like that is the answer that is us, our ability to go be taught by God at any moment we choose. All we have to do is go out into nature with your problems. Take it to nature. Take your emotions, take your frustrations, take your worry, take your stress, take it to nature and be open to it. Don't try to hide it or pretend like no, like bring it and ask, help me. Right? Go into nature and just start speaking. Talk to yourself, talk to nature and watch what happens. It's so beautiful because everything that I've learned about myself, about Umbanda, about nature, right? The way that I understand this, right, is like I can share a lot of teachings and I have a lot of stories and things like that. But you have a lot of teachings, a lot of stories, right, that are different than mine, but they're all correct,
Mhm.
right? Why? How is that? Because we could line up 100 people, take them to the same place, and be like, okay, sit here for 20 minutes and tell me what you learned, what you heard, what you realized. And we might get 100 different answers, and all 100 of them are correct.
Absolutely.
Every single one of them is right because it'll speak to you through the language and through the filter in which you show up with. Right. And so it will work with you exactly the way that it should. And there isn't a need for someone to tell you, like, oh, no, that tree doesn't say that. No, the river doesn't do that. No, it does. If that's what it's telling you, that's exactly what the river says. That is exactly what it's meant for. And so in that way, it is a direct connection with the creative force of God on this planet.
And for people that, like both of us, do believe in the existence of spirits through the lens of Umbanda and Spiritism, when you listen deep and close enough, you listen the whispers of spirit, the assist and the support of spirit, and it's really meant to assist and to uplift you wherever you're at on your journey.
Yeah, and part of the spiritism, which I love so much too, and it always brings me so much joy when I hear this, is right, like we get to receive information for ourselves, right? But in spiritism, they say it's only confirmed when someone else says and hears the same thing that wasn't with you when you heard your thing, which is so beautiful, right? Because we have all of these, we have our teacher Kai, we have all of these teachers in Brazil and in other parts of the world, and then so I receive things, and then I hear someone say the same thing. And I'm and so it's exciting in that way because it for me I get excited because it's like wow, like right, like watching nature, observing nature, like there's magic here. It's magical. It's whimsical. It's beyond the comprehension of a human mind, but yet it's happening. Right, we are experiencing miracles all of the time, and we don't know how, and that's okay. To not understand how. I don't think we're supposed to fully understand, all of divinity, but Um, I think it's just a beautiful process that Spiritism really brings to the table as well, because it's proof that what that there are spirits, that there are energies out there that we cannot see or comprehend that are working for us on our behalf.
And I'm going to try really briefly. I know I'm not justifying this explanation about Spiritism, but to simplify it, it's the understanding that we are spirits first and foremost, and we are surrounded by spirits that are influencing our life. Some are benevolent spirits, and they have a lot of impact through the choices that we're making. And I want to ask you a question that kind of like comes up. I had an interview the other day with cannabis facilitator, and we talked about the addictive tendency of working, consuming cannabis. That I definitely have this addictive tendency. I will constantly say it and speak my truth and my weaknesses. And she believes that addiction is a spirit, and that spirit is always with us. Sometimes it shouts, sometimes it whispers. But it was a very interesting perspective that I never thought of. There are some traditions that believe that addiction, whether if it's spirit or not, never really lives you. It is with you for forever and ever, as long as you are in this physical form, if you have experienced that. What is your take on it?
Yeah, I agree. Addiction is a spirit. I call addiction spiritual warfare. I truly do believe that that is the case, and especially in my case, right? I wanted to stop. I could not. Like, I could rationally see how this was ruining my life, that death and prison were absolutely possibilities if I don't stop. And yet I couldn't stop. And so, how does that work? Addiction is a hijacking. So it is almost like a possession, if you will. And I do agree with her. It doesn't leave us. I believe that we are open ourselves up to the possibility of allowing the spirit of addiction in. And when we do, it doesn't leave. Um, but so imagine the possession is right. So like the part of me that didn't want to do drugs was like 3%. 97% of my consciousness was hijacked by addiction. It was manipulating me. It was gaslighting me, telling me, oh, just one more time. Oh, it'll be okay. Oh, when this one runs out, then you can stop. And then that one runs out. And it's like, no, go get more. Right. Like, so it's constantly tricking your own consciousness. Right. So it is a hijacking in that way. And so then when we remove the drugs, it wants to really fight hard. Like it doesn't want to leave. And our teacher Kai so beautifully says, how do we know if we're spiritual healthy or not? He says our spiritual health is we can look how spiritual healthy we are by looking at our willpower. How
Mhm.
much willpower do we have? So in this phase, right, my spirit is not in my body. Addiction has taken over and my spirit is on the outside watching and trying to get back in, but it can't because a spirit of addiction is
Blocks taking over completely.
is taken over completely. So I
Mhm.
have no free will. My free will is gone because my spiritual health is not, there is none, right? My spirit isn't even in my body at this point. And so then we remove the drugs and then the battle begins. Then then we get to start to really fight and see the parts of ourselves that want to stay small, that find it easier to just be on drugs than it is to do take care of our responsibilities, to show up in a way, right? And so that is becomes the battle of addiction trying to find its way back in. But every time we do the right thing for ourselves, and I'll use this back to the warrior terminology, every time we wield that sword of truth and I walk in truth, integrity, and transparency, that is a victory. I win. I gain more percentage of my spirit comes in and more of addiction goes out. More comes in, more comes out. And the only weapon I have in this spiritual battle is this sword of truth, integrity, and transparency. And we can all relate to this in the same way because if everyone is completely honest, walking in integrity, and fully transparent. This is who I am. This is what I do. I have nothing to hide. I am open. I'm standing in my weakness at all times, and I am completely allowing myself to be fully seen. How could we ever feel any type of guilt or shame or remorse, right? All of these lower level emotions, these lower self qualities cannot exist with truth, integrity, and honesty. So it doesn't matter if we're in addiction or not, right? An addict, it doesn't matter. But these three things are what are required for spiritual health to keep our higher self present, which is why Archangel Michael is the representation of that. And he carries the sword for this reason, right? It's teaching us what that demon is. That demon is our lower level self. It is guilt, it is shame, it is remorse, it is judgments, it is all of the things that we don't like about ourselves, right?
It's wow, it's so interesting. Like you say that, and I can imagine how a person that is going through addiction can use the help of all the orishas that we're working on. You need Oshun to self-love, because if you would love yourself, you wouldn't fall into addiction. You need to stay focused and determined, because that will distract you from addiction. You need Eshu to close this door. You need the discipline of Ogum to walk a different path. You need the justice of Shango to do justice with yourself. You need the Ansa to blow the winds of transformation and shift your life completely. You need them all. And above all, faith and Oshala.
And just to kind of piggyback off what you said, it's not that we need them or they need them. It's we already have them. They're already here. All we need to do is invite,
Tune in.
tune in, right? Connect to that part of ourselves because it is they are within us and without and out of us. How do you say that? Within and without, right? They are within and
As
without.
within, so without, yeah.
Yeah, right. That is the essence of this work, right? And so faith, I love this. Faith is it's my word of the year, actually. Is the word of the year for me is to surrender and to have more faith. Faith in the divine plan. Um, and I think faith for me, it sounds really simple, right? It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have faith, right? Well, faith, where are you gonna put your faith? In yourself, in God, in the world, right? And then what happens when you come up against something, right? Like for let's say I'm putting faith in myself, and then I go and I fail at something. Do I lose my faith? Right? And so my word for this year is faith because I want to hold faith in all aspects of my life. Right. And Oshala, so Oshala is it's so beautiful, right? Talking about synchronicities between Christianity and Umbanda, right? There's God and there's Jesus, right? And in Catholicism, they're the same and they're different and they're the same. And right, there's like, but God is Jesus, Jesus is God, right? And so all of these things. So in Umbanda, it's the same thing. Olorum is the creator, and Oshala is Jesus, right? They're the same and they're different, and they're the same and they're different, right? It's in the same way, right? So there's synchronicities here. And so we can remove face and form. Stop calling it Jesus, stop calling it Oshala, and just recognize God. And then there's this child, this light of God,
And
right?
also, Kai said so beautifully, like if we're talking about the place that Oshala resides, is the open field, the expansiveness. So looking at life through the lens of, okay, so this is where I'm at right now, but if I'll zoom out a little bit, there are so many possibilities, and the sky are so clear. And faith, for me, this is another quality of Oshala, is patience. Just be patient wherever you're at on your journey. Be patient with yourself, with your beloved, with your children, with your friends. Be patient with this, be patient with this journey. So important.
And I think too, what you're speaking to is such a beautiful way of connecting with these Orishas is going into their points of nature, right? And it's interesting because what I said about the tree earlier, right? We could have 100 different people and get 100 different answers and they'd all be right, which is true. However, there are certain points in nature and on this planet that if we sent 100 people to, we would probably get 80 similar answers, 20 slightly, barely different answers, right? And here's what I mean by that, right? Like you brought up the ocean earlier. Every single person that goes to the ocean to watch a sunset, they feel the same thing. We're all feeling the impact of the beauty. We're feeling relaxed. We're feeling peaceful. We're feeling feelings, deep feelings, right? Every single one, all across the board. Same with these points of nature for Oshalan, these open fields. When we go to the open field and we just are standing looking in awe, right? I always say the for me the feeling of Oshala is standing in front of your life, looking out at the possibilities of your life and having God just put his hand on your shoulder and say, you got this. You can do whatever you want. Go for it. I got you. Right? That is the faith, because when we have faith in God, in the universe, in the world, God takes that and gives it right back to us times 100, times 10, right? Okay, faith in God is faith in myself. And so, but it's interesting because it's faith in God is like, well, it's the unknown. How can I really know? I don't know God personally. There isn't the burning bush. There isn't the thing. And so what I say is that's so beautiful. That's so great, because do you know your highest self? Do you know the best version of yourself yet too? We don't know that either. We don't know what that feels like. We don't know what that looks like. So when we're putting our faith in God, we're putting faith in ourselves to take the step into the unknown. To who am I without addiction? I don't know. Let me find out. Let me have faith and find out. Let me take one step without knowing the outcome, right? And then our faith builds off of that. Our confidence, our trust, everything about us builds off of that, because life is unknown. It is unknown all of the time. We are so out of control, and yet we're fighting for so much control. And so faith is the most important divine quality that we really need to have and hold on to, because that's the thing that will get us to take the step when we don't know which direction we're going in, when we don't know if this is the right choice or not, if this is going to be the make or break decision of my, okay, faith,
You know,
right?
the flag of Oshala is a white flag, and at some point I realized that what white flag symbolizes is surrender. I surrender, you know. You God, you won. I surrender. I understand that I don't understand, and I understand that all I have is trust, surrender, letting go, and just experience, knowing, really knowing that I can't fail. I can't fail, even if the small little me, the ego, feels that in this present moment I failed. I don't even have the capacity to see what is 10 steps ahead.
Yeah. And I think too, which is like, and to anyone listening, right? Like, I want to like validate how scary that is. Like, so scary, right? And what if each time you took a step, it got less scary, right? Because then you start to learn how to trust yourself, to trust God in navigating the unknown. That no matter, because what you learn in the process is that no matter what happens, I'll be okay. I'll figure it out. I'll be able to I'll find a way, right? And that, I think, is the such a key component to any spiritual growth or spiritual path, is to build that type of trust with creator, with the energies of like, I don't need to know all of the answers right now. All I need to do is know what I know and take a step, and then trust that this will be supported. And if it's not, then okay, I can course correct. I can find another way. I can do something different, right? Because when we don't have that in us, we stay where we're at, right? And
Yeah.
it's, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I think that what nature teaches us constantly, that we have to act in our life. In this journey, we're meant to act, not just wait and see what happens. And we are, I believe, sometimes in a society, in culture of waiting, procrastinating, being on our screens, sitting, watching Netflix, eating potato chips, salt and vinegar potato chips, to be to be specific, but we are meant, nature teaches us that we must act. We must act on our desires. We must fail and try and fail and try. That's what we came here to do.
Yeah, and in all of these ceremonies, these Umbanda ceremonies, Candomblé ceremonies, Ifa ceremonies, all ceremonies that are working with Orisha, everyone is dancing all of the time for that exact reason. They can only work for us, through us, as us, if we're moving. We have to be moving. We have to be making choices. We have to be learning and moving through our life in order to receive this type of help and this type of support and these types of teachings. We have to be moving.
Would you
I love
speak a word about how does Umbanda impact your journey with plant medicine? How do these factors kind of like intertwine, whether if it's ayahuasca or sacred mushrooms?
Yeah, so I believe that all of the psychedelic, well, all of the plant medicine psychedelics are different doorways to the same room, right? And so that's just my personal belief. And so yeah, I work with study Umbanda with both types of medicines, with ayahuasca and sacred mushrooms. And I find them both to be really, really beneficial, in helping me understand. And the correlation between the two is something that I've heard Kai say before too, is that we're ingesting plants into our system, so the plant kingdom then becomes our teacher. And because the Orishas and those things are actually like the plant kingdom itself, the mother nature, it's an easier way for us to access the ability to be taught in this way. So plant medicines really help kind of clear the rational mind and open us up to being like looking at ourselves through the lens of earth, right? And this is what I think all plant medicines do, is they show us that we are not separate,
Mhm.
right? Everybody comes out of their first year being like, oh my God, I'm part of Earth, right? Across the board. No one's like thinking that they're still separate from Earth after they've done ayahuasca one time. That's all it takes to feel connected to this planet, right? And so I believe all plant medicines show us that capacity that we have, and it gives us a new appreciation for this life that we get to live. And hopefully it teaches us how to walk in a good way, on this in this life and on this planet, and to understand that, even in the face of these fires that we're having in California right now, right, and feeling really helpless, right, but we are part of this, like this is happening for us on our behalf in some way. And I want to be very sensitive as I say that, uh, to people that have been impacted directly, and just know that I'm saying this from a space of absolute faith and love and compassion, as lives were destroyed and new lives are emerging. I'm very sensitive to that, and at the same time, I can fully trust, and right, my word of the year is faith. I can be in complete faith that this is happening for us, for humanity, on our behalf, and I don't know if this is where you want to go right now, but I can speak more to that and directly to what I'm witnessing in this as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
right. To notice that what this fire has done, what it did in Lahaina, what it's doing now here in LA,
It's
right?
important to mention the recording that you're hearing right now is recorded while we're still dealing with the fires, the devastating fires around LA, relatively close-ish to where we're both at. And yeah,
Yeah, and just a shout out to all of the first responders and the firemen. My brother is a firefighter for LA County, and just want to acknowledge these incredible men and women that are doing everything, working tirelessly in the face of such wild, crazy chaos, the powerful force that this fire is, and they are combating it. They're up against it, brushing shoulders with it, and really doing what they can to support their communities and these homes, and save as much as they can. So thank you to all of them. Um, yeah, and so what I'm noticing too is right back to this energy of fire and the spirit of fire and the spirit of wind, these winds of transformation. And as devastating as it is, right, if we have faith and we can span out like you were saying, right, let me see a bigger picture because I have faith. What we can see is we can see that there's people helping people that would have never helped each other before. There's people that lived on the same street that never spoke to each other that are now hugging and crying together and holding each other in the grief. Right? The so many different walks and aspects of life that would have always in their own minds are so separate and not part of this person's different, this person's different. I'm better, I'm worse, this person's better than me, I'm better than them. Right? All of these things are now burned away with everything else. Right? And so what is left is what matters most. Right? People helping people, community is being so strengthened right now. The bonds of connection are being so strengthened, where before there might have been judgments, there might have been disdain, right? There might have been dislike or hatred even towards another person because of who you voted for. Any of those things that are now, those things are do not matter. What matters is people are showing up for each other, and that I think is the beautiful piece of this that I'm witnessing. And what I think it's doing, is it's restoring faith in humanity, which as a society we were getting really close to losing. It felt like, right? People were starting to lose faith in government and each other, and right, and in that process, people are starting to get selfish and hoarding and right, trying to do what's right for me and my family. I need to protect this. I need to protect that, right? And in the process, we're creating more distance. So insert this very destructive fire to burn all of that back away, to show us again that's not necessary. What is necessary, what is important is to come together, to help each other, to lend a hand, to lend an ear, to give a shoulder to cry on, to give water, give what you can, donations, it does anything. That's what matters most. And I have a friend who I'm so proud of her. She lost, her family lost. So there's multiple homes that like sister, brother, dad all lived in this area, and they all lost their homes except for her. Um, and what she was posting about was not about, oh my God, my house is gone. Oh my God, my car is gone. Everything I got for Christmas is gone. None of that. Well, and I thought this was so beautiful because what she was sharing was like, I'm so sad. The CVS parking lot where I had my first kiss burned to the, right? Where the parking lot I learned to drive in burned to the ground, right? And so again, right, we think these things matter, and they do. I don't want to minimize the things that we work hard for. But at the end of the day, what matters even more than that is the experiences and the connections, the memories that we create with other people, right? I was asking her, I was like, do you remember what you were wearing when you had your first kiss? She's like, no. Okay, right? That's not important, right? It was important that night, but it's not important, right? Do you remember the type of car you were driving, what year it was? No, doesn't matter. Because it wasn't important. The fact that someone was there teaching or showing her how to do this thing that might have felt really scary at the time, right? And so I believe that this could possibly be the reason for the fires, right? And I know there doesn't need to be a reason, right?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make a reason or even pretend to know the why, right? We don't know why, but it's happened.
And
It
it
happened.
is coming back to what we started with. How is that impacting my journey? What is the esoteric meaning that I give the fires to my life? And it's important to say two more things. One, through the lens of Mother Nature, is again humility. For us humans, we Mother Nature can be very destructive, and Mother Nature will stay here long after we will all be gone. And we are one of the reasons that we are trying to bring the wisdom of Umbanda is because I truly believe that if we'll come closer, we'll get closer to Mother Nature, helping her, protect her, listen to her, it might do some good here. I don't know. I do believe that more disasters will come, but I can do my best to stay really connected in understanding the land.
Yeah, I think I believe the more we come back to connecting with nature, the closer we get to living more peacefully and living more in harmony. Because if we take us out of the picture, this planet that we're living on is in perfect harmony and balance. Um, I heard something the other day. It was like where you find harmony in nature, you will find ferocity and violence, meaning that the wolves are going to eat the bison in a healthy, harmonized way so that the bison don't eat all of the grass, so that the ants and the mice and the ground squirrels all have a place to live, right? The wolf isn't eating the bunny rabbits and the chipmunks, it's eating the bison, right? The bison are eating the grass so the grass doesn't get overgrown, right? Everything on this planet has a purpose. It is serving something. There's a dust storm that happens in the Sahara Desert that blows sand across to the other side of the world to fertilize the Amazon jungle, right? To land in the sea, and then the sand, the sun, and the water create algae, and then the entire food system for the all life in the ocean stems from that one algae. Everything has a purpose. The ants decompose, but everything has a purpose, and so do we. We fit into this perfectly designed system. And I believe that is what Umbanda teaches us. It shows us how to fit into this system, to be in harmony with this home that we get are so blessed to have, this amazing blue rock floating in space around the giant ball of fire that just happens to be the perfect distance away for we don't overheat and burn up or freeze to death. I mean, this is divinely orchestrated. Can we surrender to this orchestration, have faith and surrender into this process and live within the planet, not on top of or above or but with this planet? I believe that's what Umbanda and all of the forces of nature and all of the spirits are here to help us understand.
And always ask, what can I do for you, Mother Nature? What can I give back? How can I do something for you? Which offerings teaches us in such a symbolic and beautiful way when we give flowers and we give fruits and vegetables and give take some precious time to dedicate the act of giving back. It's a beautiful practice.
Yeah, and I'll share. So, you know, I say this with the utmost humility because I I'm just me, but I live 5 minutes from the beach and I walk on the beach every single day. When I first moved here, for the first like 3 years, I just walked past and I would be like, man, this beach is so trash. I can't believe people leave their shit all over the place. And like occasionally I would like pick a few things up with my hands and throw them away until finally, right, studying Umbanda, right, learning more about nature and working with plant medicines, I bought the little pinchers, and so now when I go on my walk, I bring those and I do what I can, right? And I don't say that there's not like a look at me, but I'm to honor what you were saying. What can I do for you, right? My consciousness was not there for the first 3 years I lived on the beach. I didn't think that. I thought, what is that? How come everybody else can't throw their shit away? Right? Okay, right. But this evolution of consciousness, opening ourselves up to these teachers, allows us to become participants in the healing, as Kai says, the healing of ourselves and the healing of Mother Nature, planet Earth. Right? We get to be active participants in this process. And how beautiful is that?
How great
Right?
it feels when you're giving, when you're doing something, when you pick up one butt of cigarettes and put it in the trash bin, it feels so good, really. You're doing something. You're doing
Yeah.
something. Before we close this magnificent call, according to Umbanda, 2025 is the year of Shango and Iansa. We talked about him a little bit, but what kind of what advice can you give to people to be aware of, or as they work with this energy, as 2025 bring the energy of Shango and Iansa, what should we prepare for?
Be prepared for a lot of growth, a lot of change, right? A lot of change. Last year was the year of Oshala and Nishu, the year of light and dark, right? And we can watch what was happening in society. There's so much darkness being brought to the surface and so much light also, right? And so now that we can see the light, and now we can see, now come Iansa and Shango to help us transform, to help us balance out the imbalance of the darkness that is ahead of the light in a lot of areas in our health system and our medical and our education systems, right? There's a lot of things that are not in balance that are now, because of last year, have been brought to light. So now this year it comes to balance, right? And Ian Sa is also the governs the throat chakra, which is communication. So it's important to speak up for what you believe in this year as well, right? To be more vocal, to stand up for your health, to stand up for what you believe is right. And I'm saying this, I'm saying what you believe is right, right? So there's going to be a lot of different beliefs being talked about. That is okay. If don't be afraid to, right, speak your truth, to speak your voice unapologetically. Allow what you want to be true, to manifest by speaking up and standing in this truth, which is the balancing of Shango and Yansa is like, okay, we have to stand up for what's right. Now we've seen it. To keep our mouth closed is to be complicit in allowing this darkness to be present, to allowing this injustice to continue to occur. It is my fault if I'm not speaking out and standing up for what I personally believe is right. Right. And I hope that there's people on the other side of what I believe also doing the same. Right. Because I believe that is what is going to bring the collective of people together to the table to actually understand and get to real solutions that are going to make lasting change in our society, global society, even too, not just in the within the U.S. And yeah, and so I would be prepared to really like hold on tight to what you believe and be open and willing to find new ways of believing, right? And changing. They say that Shango is in every single atom on this earth, in the whole universe that makes up all matter, living, inanimate, animate objects. Shango is in all of it. So there is a balancing that is happening. Can we open up our heart, set aside what I think I know about someone else, what I think I know about addiction, what I think I know about myself, and open my heart to find more balance, to find more harmony, to let go, right? And again, if there's something we're supposed to let go of and we're struggling to do it and holding on tight, I would say be very mindful of that, because Iansa, this wind, this energy loves you so much that if you are not meant to get out of this year with that thought, with that belief system, with that judgment, she will stop you. And so, and I use the analogy all the time, right? We can run through a lot of stop signs in our life. But if we continue to run through the stop signs going in a direction we're not meant to head in, eventually we will crash and it will be painful, right? And then we'll have no other choice but to, right? And so early on in this year, we still have a choice. We can still let go of certain thoughts, of certain beliefs, of certain behaviors.
Attachments, yeah.
Yeah, right. And if we don't, if we hold on to them, there will come a time where we will be forced to let them go, right? The wind will come in, the tornado will come, and it will take away that branch. It will take away that leaf. It will take away that thought. It will take away that belief, right? By showing you in a really, hopefully not too traumatic or painful way, right? But, and again, this is for us to realize that thought, that behavior, that belief is going, I'm going down a path that is not meant for me. So they're here to help me change so that I can go to the place that I'm supposed to be in, become the person that I'm supposed to become. Right. So faith plays a big part in all of this as well, because again, who do we know? How do we know who we're going to be without this thing that we've held on to our whole lives? This way of thinking, this way of believing, this way of relating.
Yeah, and I believe that, you know, transformation is something that we are meant to go through again and again and again and again. And some of them will be the light whisper, the soft blowing wind that blows behind your ear. And some of them needs to be very dramatic, very chaotic, very tornado-like. It is all meant to serve what is best for you and for your growth and expansion and the evolution of the soul.
Yeah, right. We are chemically designed to change. Me and Ito at one point were little babies, just like baby Gaia. You could hold us in a hand. Now, 6 feet tall, beards, right? Big men. We changed completely. We didn't sit here and be like, okay, I'm going to grow today. I'm going to grow an inch today. We didn't focus on it. The transformation happened. But we trusted that, okay, we're going to be right. So that part of transformation is like, we don't always get to choose the change that's happening, but can we have faith that it's happening on our behalf? And then when we do have the choice to choose transformation, we take it, right? But change is happening, like you were saying, regardless of whether we want it to or not. It is happening. So
Accept
to,
it, just accept.
yep, which requires faith.
Yeah. So
Okay.
beautiful. Now, Matt, one last thing before we finish our call. If people are interested in working with you, can you express in your own words what services do you offer at the moment?
Yeah, so I offer one-on-one coaching, relationship coaching as well. And then so those are both done either in person or online. And I also offer a nature immersion, which is my favorite, and it's really, really impactful, is where we go into nature for 3 to 4 days, glamping style, or really on the ground if you want. That's my preference, but most people prefer glamping. And we really find ways to reconnect to our roots, reconnect to nature, and we just spend a lot of time out in nature. There's certain rituals that come from all different lineages that we go through, and prayers that we offer, and then we end with a sacred mushroom ceremony on the last full day there to kind of really tie everything in together. Um, it's really beautiful. We're eating foods from the land. It's a really unique, powerful process of reconnecting to not just yourself, but to so many different aspects of nature that are also within us. And then I also have a retreat coming up with my wife, Jen, my beautiful wife, Jen. We are going to Costa Rica. We are having our Roots to Stars retreat in Costa Rica, which also involves a sacred medicine ceremony at the end. This one is a reset and reclaim is the theme. But again, we will be working with the forces of nature to help us understand the process of resetting and reclaiming and self-love. And it's this beautiful, beautiful space in Costa Rica with a spa, and it's absolutely magical.
Amazing.
And so we have those offerings coming up as well.
That is amazing. And of course, needless to say, everything that you offer is always flavored with the essence of Umbanda because this is how you live your life. And this is why it's always such a pleasure to talk to you, to connect to you, to receive this divine inspiration from you. I'm so grateful for you for joining us today. And thank you, everyone who listened and joined us to the current wisdom. Until next time, haush, love, lots of ashe, all the good stuff.
Ouch, ouch. Love you, brother.